Hi, my name is Tasia Kowar. I did my presentation on streaking in baseball, going over the history of streaking in sports and the biology behind it. So the origin of streaking. Streaking is defined as the act of running naked in a public space to gain attention or express strong disapproval. It began with an Anglo-Saxon woman in the 11th century. Her name was Lady Godiva, and she was protesting her husband, who I guess she didn't approve of his ruling. And when she streaked naked, she rode around on a horse, and everyone was told not to look at her body, and it coined the term peeping Tom, which is also a myth. But the streaking that this presentation is mainly about began in the 70s. It started in warm college campuses, usually down south, and there was a huge streak in 1974 with 1,543 students at the University of Georgia. And 1974 is a huge year, so we will see that many times throughout this presentation. So why did it start? Originally, it was started to push boundaries, so nudity offers an appropriate way to counter the bodily constraints of contemporary living. In sports, it was more of a social pressure, so men usually were doing pranks, but overall, it just heightened the crowd arousal, so crowds got really pumped up when someone streaked on the field, and it broke game tension. So if there were two big rivals that were competing against each other, it was just a way to break the tension. It was just a stupid funny thing to look at. And another reason why it started was for political statements. Some streakers streaked with things in their hand like flyers or something written on their chest to try to make a statement, usually political. So Twickenham Stadium is a really big stadium for streakers because two of the most known streakers were streaking at this stadium. So we have Michael O'Brien. He is known as sports first streaker. Twickenham Stadium is a rugby stadium. It's in England, and he streaked in 1974. And when he was interviewed about it, he basically said that he regrets starting the worldwide trend. He said if he had known it would blow up this big, he probably wouldn't have done it. And also he did not know that there was going to be footage of him doing the streaking. So he said he probably would not have done it knowing the impact that it would have had. And Erica Rowe is another well-known streaker. She's known as Twickenham Streaker. She streaked in 1982 in January, and when asked about it, she said, I just can't explain why I streaked. She had a cigarette in her mouth, and she was intoxicated and decided, that's what she wanted to do, and yeah, the rest is history. Another famous streaking incident, more modern, is Mark Roberts. He is the world's most famous streaker, and he is known as that because he has streaked so many times. He streaked from 1993 to 2004, allegedly 285 times, according to him, and possibly more after that, but that was the stat that I could find. And he attempted to streak at the Super Bowl. He was I'm going to bring this to the big stage, and he tried to do it at Super Bowl 38, and he said we would have gotten a bigger bang for our buck if Janet Jackson wouldn't have, and I'm sure you know what happened at the 2004 Super Bowl with Janet Jackson. So the media significance. At the time, many singers, artists were trying to profit off of the fad, but one of the most known is from Ray Stevens. He made the song The Streak in 1974. There's that year again. And the song topped the Billboard 100 charts, and it says oh yes, they call him The Streak, boogity boogity. He likes to show off his physique, boogity boogity. If there's an audience to be found, he'll be streaking around, inviting public critique. So it's probably one of the most known streak songs. But the media significance in baseball, in my opinion, if I would have loved to do some more research on this, but I find that most streaking incidents are brought up when in episodes or movies about baseball or at a baseball game. I have no facts to prove that other than personal experience with watching movies. I don't really see it as much in football or basketball games or any other sport. Usually when there's a baseball episode, you see or hear of something referencing a streaker. But shows that specifically talk about streaking in reference to baseball is that 70s show, which checks out The Simpsons, Seinfeld, Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Family Guy, American Dad, and more. Family Guy and American Dad is actually the reason why I chose this topic, because I was watching both of those shows in the beginning of the semester, and both of them had an episode with a baseball scene or about baseball and talked about streakers, and I thought it was kind of funny that both of them would have streakers at baseball games. So I thought, this could be a cool topic to go into depth for or in. And some movies that have baseball streaking references are The Naked Gun from The Files of Police Squad in 1988. I do not recommend watching that movie. It is very stupid. I tried to find a clip for the presentation and it just was so bad. And also Taking Care of Business that came out in 1990 and Summer Catch in 2001. And there's probably much more. These are what I could find. So a very interesting baseball streaking incident was the White Sox versus Angels in 1974. On April 5th at Comiskey Park, there was a very violent game. So people were fighting and choking each other, and overall the game was just very chaotic. And then a streaker came onto the field wearing nothing but a White Sox helmet, and then he dropped the helmet and ran back for it, completely nude. And there was also an older man on the field in nothing but his underwear, which is unsettling, and there were also streakers in the stand. I chose to talk about this one specifically because it is just so chaotic, and we have that prominent year 1974 again, so it just kind of sums up just how chaotic this fad got, especially this game. And another more recent baseball streaking incident was in 2023. There was a Texas A&M college streaker. He went on field with Trump 2024 drawn across his chest, and halfway through the field he mooned the crowd. And this was really just like a political statement. So, and I linked the video below. It does not show the mooning part, thankfully, but it is kind of funny because he jumps over the wall really fast and he gets caught by the authorities. And in 2021, a Washington National streaker took to the field, and it was really just for entertainment. He wasn't really trying to say anything, but he was completely naked, and he's running over tarp, and he slipped and fell. He got back up, and if you can see, there's like a little black tube to the left of the picture, and he crawls in the tube, and the authorities are waiting on both ends for him to crawl back out. So it was just really comedic, and yeah, it's just a funny video. So it comes back to the point, like, is streaking so bad? So in its origin, streaking was seen as a political act in colleges where students were just trying to take back some type of authority. In the article that I read, it was like, let's shove the administration where to shove it. And also, like, streaking is not just a male thing. Males and females both got in on the sport, I guess. But it was uniting in a way. But people like to, think it's like a sexual act, and it really wasn't in its origin. Everything was just too fast. You actually don't have time to gawk because you're running across the field. You just happen to be naked. And at the time when it started, it was senator approved. So the senator said, I'm commending the streakers on their ability to streak in their unbeatable school spirit. But there are repercussions to streaking. Originally, there was just like a light punishment, not much, again, it happened on college campuses, so they didn't really want to punish their students for having fun during a trend. But as it got more widespread, it caused a lot of turmoil, I guess. And nowadays, the charges have gotten a lot more worse than just a slap on the wrist. So you can get charged with many things now for streaking. You can get charged with indecent exposure. You can be put on a sex offenders list if there are kids or children present. You can be charged with a misdemeanor and trespassing on the field. And there are fines starting at $1,000 and higher in some states. You can also go to jail or probation if you're a first-time offender. And there is also a permanent ban on the streakers in the fields or stadiums that they streak in. So what's the cultural relevance? Well, streaking really came around as a liberation thing. It was during the time, there was also the Vietnam War, so people were just trying to find ways to have fun and let loose. Let loose, I guess it's not a great term to use, but and also this kind of aligns with the hippie era. I mean, probably one of the most prominent known things from the 70s. They were free-spirited thinkers, and people got naked on field, so I guess this kind of aligns with this hippie era. And it was also a means of pushing boundaries. So again, I quoted this a little earlier in the presentation, but nudity offers an appropriate way to counter the bodily constraints of contemporary living. So now to the biology of streaking. I decided to add this in here because I'm a biology major and this is my synthesis class, so it's supposed to tie everything together, so I figured I'd tie it back to my major. As you know, clothing is relatively new to human evolution. We went longer in our evolution without clothing than we did with clothing. And there's a part of the brain known as N170, and it's in the occipitotemporal part of the brain, so between that purple and that green part of the picture. And this part of the brain was known for processing faces in human bodies. But the experiment that I looked at, the procedure was to use EEG electrodes in 15 males to have some control in the experiment. They didn't use women. And they showed many images and recorded the EEG results. And they showed 4 different types of images to the men. They showed cars, faces, nude bodies, and bodies in swimsuits. And here are the results. You can see on the right, the green is the nude bodies, and it is the strongest amplitude. So our brains light up more to nude bodies. And the article, or I guess this is the experiment, found that more exposure to, sexual areas of the body caused increased N170 sensitivity, which was originally thought to be sensitive to really only faces. But the relevance to this presentation is that our brains have higher response amplitudes to nudity. So streaking is successful in attention grabbing, and I guess in a way for political statements and overall just breaking tension of the game, this makes sense scientifically. So in conclusion, streaking is liberating. It represents American liberties. It's scientifically proven to be effective in attention grabbing. And most importantly, it showed its relevance in the pop culture of baseball. So I was thinking to myself, like, does this really have anything to do with baseball? But this class is baseball and American culture. And I think streaking shows a lot about American culture, especially at the time that it occurred. And I threw in this meme that I found online because it's streaking in baseball and it kind of tied in funny. And I love Will Ferrell. He's hilarious. So yeah, and here are my references. Thanks for watching.